administration. PHMSA, they have a notice of proposed rulemaking that they had on January 10th of 2025, and it is 346 pages long. I don't know if any of you took time.
Yeah.
Did you read the whole thing, Rich? Okay. Yeah. So
Riveting.
I
I'm
guess
sure.
go ahead and you guys want to discuss that.
See, it does have some language in there in regards to some, I wouldn't call them necessary setbacks, but I see they've talked about some of their studies for sure. They should be proposed, I guess. Just kind of nice to see.
And I would guess that being it's not approved and only proposed rulemaking, that it is still subject to change. But I think they're obviously addressing concerns with safety.
What is setback in that?
Well, I guess like you said, it's proposed, but there's lots of literature, language in there for 2 miles. I do know that.
Yeah.
I guess I see lots of that. You know, like we've talked before in some of those discussions, like where that, if there was ever a leak or explosion, you know, that the CO2 is heavy, so it can go to those low-lying areas, and depending on conditions, depending on conditions, may not dissipate like other natural gas or
Yeah, if
oil.
They had, whether the natural gas, because that would be an explosion, and then it's done.
Right.
This, there'll be an explosion, and it's still not done.
They do like reference, you know,
Getting to this. But
the
they just-
events that are causing, you know, they do reference that, like those incidents, like the one in Mississippi and that in the documentation. In my skimming, I did
Yeah,
see that.
right.
Well, I've stated many times, I think the risk is low, but it's not completely impossible. And as sparsely populated as we are, I don't see why that pipeline couldn't be built and stay 2 miles away from stuff. I mean, they can snake it around if they have to, but I think it's reasonable safety standard and request.
And that's what a lot of our ordinances setbacks are currently for conditional use.
It would emulate that,
Or emulate
like a
those.
continuing thing where we do have that 2 miles.
Right.
But it can be, you get the approval of neighbors.
Right, that's just like everything. If you get an
Like the
approval, yeah. Yep. Your neighbor approves it and they give you a letter stating that they do approve it, then it can be closer, yes.
So I know some of that original Article 17, we had some changes, I guess, I had some changes that we wanted to see, and a lot of them were suggestions, I guess, from NECOG on some of the verbiages and whatnot in there.
Yep.
I think we kind of settled last time on most of those.
Yep. From our last meeting, I updated everything from our conversation from the last meeting, yes. And that's what I sent over to Elton for him to review as well.
And those were just mostly just melding it in with our
Yeah.
ordinance.
And
or
you
with our-
guys added that, the 2 miles, I
Right.
believe, yep.
added the 2 miles, and then we eliminated the high
High
concentration.
concentration area, right?
Right, because we don't have that listed in our ordinance. Then I added under the minimum setback requirement 17.6, the facility animal feeding operation. Because that is what it's called in our definitions. So just so that we're following the definitions that we currently have, we wanted to make sure that that's
Right.
what it was doing. Any more discussion on Article 17? Did you guys review it and find any additional errors or additional things that you thought of after you reviewed it?
I didn't see anything that concerned me.
I did not either.
What can possibly fall into the hazardous pipeline? Is there any?
There's some videos out there if you want to watch them, Rich. Yes, there is some damage, and if there were, I mean, it can blow. Like, how far is it, Jim? Like, if you were within the,
Just the carbon line, right?
Oh, right, yeah,
yes, yeah,
natural gas.
natural gas.
It's entirely dependent upon the size of the pipeline, the pressure,
Mhm.
whatever else is, and I guess how the pipeline's going. Some people talked about, some pipeline specialists talked about, I can't remember what the term is, but when it starts to leak, it's cold and it freezes the steel.
Yeah.
And it's ductile fractures. Then that crack, as that pipe freezes, the crack starts going down the pipeline, and that's why they end up letting go, is my understanding. As the ductile fractures keep running that crack down the pipeline until it's weakened enough that it opens up. So what do we need to do as a commission to just recommend move this to the full commission for approval, or?
Okay, so actually, no,
We-
that's definitely a misinformation. The commission actually has no authority on planning and zoning. It's all you here, but I realize that you are commissioners too. But, so what you would do is that you guys would approve the modifications or make a motion to approve them as the planning and zoning. And then we would then, after that, we would, right, we would then need to, I would put it in the paper. We would have a public hearing and it'd have to be published twice, 2 consecutive weeks. We'd have to set the public hearing so that the public can then come and then we can adopt it then.
There's 2
I would,
hearings, or it has
nope,
to
there's
just-
one. I just have
No.
to have 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks prior to the meeting. It will be in the paper. So you would just need to make a motion.
I would move to approve the amendments, Article 17, since we last addressed this.
Real quick, do we want to, I don't know if anybody here had any
Oh, comments? Sorry.
comments
Yeah.
or anything, things we had. You could show up.
I have a statement.
Yeah, go for it.
Microphone right here.
Yeah,
Yeah, you-
it's all you.
Hello all, thank you. I've had a long journey here today. My name is Scott O'Connick. I'm actually a project manager for Summit Carbon Solutions. As you consider this ordinance on pipelines, I urge you to review the regulatory requirements placed on pipelines to understand pipelines fairly and accurately. It would be beneficial to review PHMSA, the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, which is the federal regulatory body of Summit Carbon and other pipeline companies. And I urge you that because I did hear tonight that there's a 365-page document of proposed stuff that you have not read, you do not understand. And I actually think you guys really should understand those before enforcing ordinances.
Can you give a synopsis of it?
I actually can leave you with, absolutely. I can even leave you with what the synopsis looks like in a one-pager. Thank you. PHMSA specifically regulates CO2 pipelines through Title 49 of Code of Federal Regulations, Part 195. This is a 121-page document outlining safety standards and reporting requirements for hazardous liquid and carbon dioxide. PHMSA regulates everything from design, construction, operation to maintenance. Our pipeline also falls into parts 190, 196, 198, and 199. Beyond PHMSA, the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC here in South Dakota, regulates our pipeline system. Another governing body that would be beneficial to become familiar with is the Army Corps of Engineers. We have submitted nationwide permit 58, utility line activity for water and other substances. This permit covers section 404 of the Clean Water Act, section 10 of the Rivers and Harbor Act, and section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. We also submitted a section 408 permit to the Army Corps of Engineers, which reviews impact to civil work projects. A joint permit will be submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Natural Resources. The joint application covers impacts to waters of the U.S. as well as 401 water quality certification, floodplain permits, sovereign land permits, and coordination with the DNR regarding federal and state threatened species, rare natural communities, and sensitive habitats. Finally, the South Dakota Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources oversees stormwater permitting, dewatering, water discharge, and water allocation. The state and federal regimes have a large hand in regulating and permitting pipelines. I realize the immense amount of time it would take to familiarize yourself with so many different governing bodies. So I would be happy to come back to Han County and spend some time walking through these regulations and talking through any concerns that you may have. To adequately regulate our pipeline, it would be important for Han County to have experts in all of the various fields, such as environmental, geological, welding, cultural, soils, toxicologists, construction, metallurgists, electrical controls, power, integrity, corrosion, rotating equipment, mechanical equipment, hydraulics, operations specialists, civil, DOT compliance, safety, product quality, and many others. This would allow you to complete a comprehensive review of our pipeline while considering the regulations that exist today. The PUC has staff of 27 and also hires third-party experts, and it takes a full year of review as well as 5 weeks of hearings to permit a pipeline. It is no small undertaking. In relation to our ordinance, when setting a 2 mile from a property line setback, has there been any review to understand what areas, if any, in the county remain available for the pipeline? Again, I'm available for information, happy to walk through any concerns you may have. Summit Carbon Solution is opposed to this ordinance as it is overly restrictive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's some more of those sheets.
That's the only one I have with me. I'm sorry. You have to make your copy. I didn't.
I've got a few questions. So
Missed you.
is it your intention to tell us what our job is or what we're supposed to do as county commissioners? Are you questioning our authority or decision-making ability?
No, I am not questioning any decision-making ability. I'm saying that you should have all the information available to you when making those decisions.
I think that the PUC on the first application process made it pretty clear that the counties have the authority to put these restrictions in place for the safety of their citizens. PHMSA makes it very clear that the counties are granted the authority of siting these pipelines. That is unquestionable. Mr. Lee Blank has a letter from PHMSA that very well clarifies that it is the county's authority to site these pipelines in the respect of safety setbacks.
Around pipelines of existing infrastructure, not on new infrastructure.
All right.
Do you have a proposed setback, what you think would be?
Well, we actually have a dispersion model sent into the PUC. Anything I would go off is obviously we're already regulated under PHMSA, so obviously I back those setbacks. But there is more information on the actual docket if you guys want to review that. Dispersion, risk assessments, all that stuff is actually in the docket and out there for public viewing.
Is the dispersion model kind of an average dispersion model? Does it take into best case and worst case scenarios? Because it's my understanding, I've listened, and you're well aware that I chaired the effort to refer Senate Bill 201. I've been involved in this pipeline discussion with a lot of people for a couple of years. And people that know something about supercritical CO2 said that there are a lot of variables to a dispersion model. And the absolute worst case scenario is cold weather and light wind. And with all of that taken into consideration, 2 miles is not even a reasonable setback. So if we're taking steps to avoid worst case scenarios, then I think that's
And
reasonable protections for our citizens.
so when you say 2 miles a reasonable setback for what size of pipeline, as every size pipeline would have a different, you know, right? A different distance, a different, that's what I'm saying. You know, the line that runs through Han County right now is a 6-inch pipeline. You guys keep referring to a very large pipeline in Satartia, Mississippi. That is not this pipeline in Han County. The other thing too is I know land rights are very important to you guys. 95% of Han County has signed and negotiated easements with Summit. This ordinance actually would push us off of those willing participants in this county and more likely onto people that do not want the pipeline on their properties. And that's one thing that really needs to be considered also. 77 tracks in this county, 74 are closed with negotiations, fair negotiations, signed easements in Han County. And I believe that weighs a lot of weight and should wear a lot of weight because I know land rights are very important to you all.
I just have a comment. So really all our ordinance would do though, since you have all of these easements signed, is for you to just go and get a copy, like a letter from those
A
people.
waiver.
See, a waiver. So you're really just gonna have to do a little bit more paperwork. In my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. The people that it's gonna be less than 2 miles if they've signed an easement.
Yep, and the ones that will not sign that piece of paper, then it's being forced on the people that may not want it on their properties.
But if they're willing to sign
But
an
if they're
easement.
already the-
There may be, everybody's scenario is different, everybody's unique and individual.
My biggest problem is, I've read through, I can't say that I've read through every single page of, you listed off several agencies and probably thousands of pages of documents you'd have to go through. I can make an argument for 300 feet, I can make an argument for 3 miles. I wish, you're presenting yourself as an expert, it would be interesting to get a number that you think would be reasonable, and I know you don't probably want to put yourself out there, but.
As PHMSA regulates those now, I stand with their setbacks. I think current regulations is like 50 feet, but obviously we are not nowhere near that in any of our pipeline.
Are you
Placements.
aware that the PHMSA regulations are actually not for CO2 pipelines, they're for natural gas pipelines, and they got applied to CO2 pipelines?
They're for hazardous liquid pipelines,
Yes.
which many liquids fall into that.
So what is this new proposed recommendations from PHMSA about? What is the purpose for them if they didn't have a concern?
As you can see right now, it's a lot of that stuff is based off of Mississippi, Satartia, Mississippi, right? And I can tell you right now with what I gave you, as you read in there too, the current administration may not do anything with those, may start over, and then the same side too, may implement them as whole. I could not tell you. That's for anybody to be told right now. There's definitely a pause or a hold on them before they even go back and look at those. So I don't know what the current administration will do with those regulations as we sit today, but there are many things on the docket that they're bringing up, all of them based on what happened at Satartia, Mississippi. And I can tell you Satartia, Mississippi is much different, much different. And from Satartia, from Han County. And the reality is many of those things, pretty much all of those things that are listed on there as recommendations are things we're currently doing.
So the 6-inch pipeline, does that still have shut-off valves every 20 miles?
That is the maximum, but it's actually shorter distances than 20 miles.
And do you have a dispersion model for a 6-inch pipeline with a 20-inch, or a 20-mile shut-off valve? Best case and worst case scenario? What are the possibilities?
So right now, the one that the dispersion model that is, you can actually get this Han County pipeline specific. It is a dispersion for that specific pipeline even. And it is, the scenarios are average type scenarios. But with the realization too that, our pipeline being 4 feet underground, these are also modeled with it on top of the ground, not below the ground, and average temperature, average winds, things like that.
So, we had one of your landowners that you got easement with, he told us when you hit his ground, you're going 6 feet.
Yes, there's many places
So why
like
don't we
that.
just bury it 6 feet to begin with? Because I was told they don't want to go up, they don't want to go down, they want to go straight. So if we're doing it here, going up and down, what's the problem of going around someone that absolutely doesn't want to have it? There's enough people out there that you can find a way to get to where you want to go.
Yes, sir. And I believe I said we're pretty much there in Han County, and ordinances like that could push us off those properties.
Sorry, I was trying to find, I made notes on a sheet that I printed off, and then I forgot to bring the printed off sheet. Anywhere, somewhere in here, one of the paragraphs stated that there needed to be, I'm talking on the notice of proposed rulemaking. It was released on the 10th. They mentioned something about documenting all residences and businesses and structures within a 2-mile radius of the pipeline. And to explain what the risk would be in that sort of radius. Do you know, does that ring a bell?
So I think what they're trying to get at there, what it is because with the emergency managers, with the, first responders, things of that's all of that nature. Okay. We have to routinely practice, yearly practice, release scenarios, things like that. So in a dispersion model, that was one of the things that they lacked in Satartia was when they were doing their dispersion study, they missed an area because they were not properly doing a wide enough area. So when they are saying we need to look to a wider area in this, as the dispersion modeling is being updated, that's what they're referring to make sure all residents, all growth, everything like that is continually tracked.
You're in contact about as far as mitigation, stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. They're going to work.
Yes, they have.
Have you had the dispersion? Okay, because we have a team that's going all over with emergency managers, first responders. It's actually up to they reach out to you, get with you. You put your folks together. You invite who you want to invite to it, and then they put on a dispersion model. Actually going over it as a whole, different sizes, the different parts per million, everything. It's very in depth. We've been doing that for quite some time.
Can I ask a quick question? So your plume study that you guys released to the document, why is it so much different than what Navigators was that they did?
I know I'm not familiar with Navigators. It could have been a different dispersion model, different size pipeline. It could have been, I guess, because you have to look at ours. Ours has many different pipe sizes and it covers all of them. So it really probably depends on what you're looking at. But I can't specifically talk to anything Navigator did.
So you're telling us that one plume study is covering all the sizes of pipe?
No, every area gets like every inch gets its own is a documented section, continuous throughout a pipeline. Different sizes, obviously, different, have different distance parameters, I guess would be
And
the
so
best way to put it.
what, there are different modeling, or not parameters, but,
Models, are you,
models.
like
Different modeling models.
what we released was Canary. Canary, we believe, is the best real life that has actually been vetted and proven with real life incidents and studies. The other thing we study is two different types of releases: a pinhole, which is a mechanic, a pinhole, and then the other one would be a full bore rupture, like it was split in half. Worst case scenario.
And so I understand that actually the computational fluid dynamic model is probably the best to run on a hypercritical liquid.
So when it comes out of a pipe, it's no longer a liquid. It actually goes back into a gas form.
And that's what makes it dangerous.
It is, in high concentration, it is, but it rapidly dissipates in wind and heat. There's many things that Jim had mentioned. He was exactly right. Have a lot to do with that. On a day like today, there's a lot of wind out there. It would dissipate very, very quickly.
How about when it was minus 22 in Greenwich?
It's going to dissipate a lot less, a lot slower. And those are the things in our studies that you will see. We're not perfect. We're not right there, but when you realize where the pipeline placement is to between, 4 feet, 6 feet underground, or sitting on top, none of that's actually taken into our study too. We actually put it like worst case scenario, like that study is done with the pipe running across the ground right here.
So you said that this is a 6-inch pipeline going from the northern part of the county.
Yes, sir.
So why did the easement say 8-inch?
Because what we've done on easements, and it's happens all over. So say right now, while the design, the agreements, all that stuff are being worked through, there is another source to be put in there to make sure that it was properly sized. So in the time from when we started the process to when we finished the process, to make sure that we could adequately have the right size to handle whatever volume is going to go through there. So in an event, we would have to upsize to 8-inch. We just call that out in the model right away. The design is actually for 6-inch in this county.
So if it was to go to an 8-inch, what would the plume study look like?
It would change. I am not the plume study expert, so I can't say, but it, obviously your distances grow.
Anybody else? No? Okay, well, I appreciate you coming.
I thank you guys so much. Congratulations. And thank you guys. And enjoy the warmth. I'm excited for it.
We are.
Um,
Can I just say something?
Yes.
I'm no expert on any of this, but, I'll sleep better.
That's what the microphones are for. Thank you.
Yes, I'll just say I'm no expert on any of this, but I'll sleep better if I say this. Several years ago, Jim Eschenbaum and I and a few other people went to Pier. Do you remember that fun time we had? And met with people at the DANR office concerning zoning ordinances with hog barns. And what we learned there, well, back up a minute. At that time, a number of commissioners would say, well, we'll trust the experts. And if they say 2 miles is it, they've done all the studies. They know what's best, so we'll just use 2 miles. But what we learned in visiting with the DANR people was the expert recommendations are minimum. And the commissioners have the legal standing to say 3 miles, 6 miles, 10 miles, whatever they feel is best for their area. And then keep in mind that the experts are also under a lot of political pressure to bring as much economic development, if that's what you want to call it, into the state. And so a lot of expert advice is often skewed, in my opinion. And I think that's something we learned that day. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's also clear to me that the PUC still has the control to override or recommend changes to our zoning ordinance. That is their authority. And so if they're far more informed than we are in these matters, perfectly fine with me. If the law says that they can override our ordinance, that they would if they felt it was necessary. I've lost where we're at. Do we
I
have
think
a-
we have,
did
we have your.
We have your
motion.
motion, Jim,
Okay. And
to
did we-
approve the modifications
did
and
we
then
have-
move on to the public hearing.
Okay, did we have a second?
Not have a second.
Have a second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the amended Article 17 hazardous liquid pipeline ordinance. Is there any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Do you guys want to set the public hearing date then? And then, so then I know when to advertise the public notice in the paper. So we need to at least notify our constituents, according to our ordinance, 15 days prior to a public hearing. So with that said, okay, so we are on the 25th of February.
So 2 weeks out would be
Two-
the 11th.
2 weeks from now would be the 11th.
You can publish it.
But then I would, I would need to publish it
The earliest you can publish is the 8th.
for the 8th.
And
So then I would actually recommend, in my opinion, so that we are for sure we're timely to do it the following week than that. If
The week of the 10th, anywhere,
Next week.
No, the week of the 17th,
of the 17th, okay.
yes. I really
That
need
would
to
give,
move
that would
it
give
so
you
that,
more than enough.
yes, I just want, so that we know that we're timely according to our ordinance and all of that.
So then what's the process? So say we get public input, we want to make more modifications,
You can during those meetings if you want, yes,
and then those, we approve those modifications as we go, and then we can still
adopt it,
adopt it.
yes.
It's like the 18th, Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 18th? When is state tournament time, Greg? Is that week or the following?
Well, it's that week, I think it'll be the end of the week.
I just know that there are some townships that are doing review boards on the 17th and 18th and 8 weeks, so that might be, people might not be able to come, they might want to, I don't know. I noticed those, I know.
Yes,
those
you are
notices
correct.
are in the paper.
And that is equalization board week as well, so.
So the whole week is
Boys is that,
equalization board week?
It is.
Should we go to the 25th?
or the, I guess the end of that week, I mean, boys basketball state tournament starts.
It's you guys, so You guys,
I'm-
I'm
20th,
20,
the 20th, or do you just want to stay out of that week altogether?
it looks like,
Let's just go to the 25th.
25th.
That works for everybody?
25th?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
do you want to do the same time then?
This
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
Because if we do the 20, we have to have 2 hearings or just one?
No, just the one. I just need to publish it twice.
There's a concert,
Okay.
2 weeks.
there's a concert at school. that
Because
week.
There's a concert at school that night.
That's what it says.
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to move along one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just wondering like
Yeah.
about other people if they want to participate, too, but that's all I'm thinking.
Like, what, like,
This
is
is
it,
what, if we do it the 25th, then we address this as the full commission on the
24th.
1st.
yes.
Twenty-fourth,
Is it,
Monday be okay?
is Monday okay with everybody? Instead of Tuesday night?
That's fine.
Fine with me.
So we're looking at the 20.
The 24th?
24th. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Done, dusted.
Greg, you got anything else?
I don't think so.
We're gonna throw this
Evening meeting again?
evening, yeah, 7 o'clock works for everybody.
All right, so then with that being said, so then there will be a public notice in the 15th paper and the 22nd paper for a meeting on Monday, the 24th at 7, a public hearing. Luke, why do you have that look on your face?
Oh, I was looking at the wrong line.
I think you should publish the 8th and 15th. You only have
Okay,
one business day between the 22nd.
okay, so I will do the 8th and the 15th then.
15th, our meetings will be on the 20th.
The 24th at 7. Okay. Okay, do you have any recommendations before the next meeting? We're all good to go?
Recommendations about,
And if we could have like chocolates or something.
Okay, I'm right on top of that. Got it. Okay,
Do we need to reconvene as the county commission?
You do to adjourn.
just to.
We
adjourn.
yes, you have
Adjourn.
to adjourn the meeting, so you need to exit planning and zoning.
I'll make a motion to exit planning and zoning and move to, commissioner meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to exit planning and zoning and enter the Board of Commission. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Scott, do you have a business card?
Red, somewhere, wherever. Yeah.